The weight of words, balancing humor with hidden hurt, begins in the familiar rhythm of a life shaped by microphones and timing, where a well-placed laugh or light remark can smooth over tension and invite audiences in. And Lindsay has long understood that humor is not merely entertainment, but a form of care, a way to make difficult moments bearable. Yet as the years accumulate and the applause becomes more routine, the weight behind those words grows heavier, because every joke carries an expectation, and every smile becomes a small promise that you are fine, that the world is lighter than it feels. And for Lindsay, who has navigated public life with intelligence and warmth, the real challenge has never been finding the right words on air, but deciding which words to keep to herself. Married to Craig Melvin, a man equally shaped by public trust and private restraint, she lives inside a shared understanding that visibility magnifies everything, including vulnerability. And together they have learned that humor can be both shield and bridge, a way to connect without revealing too much, a way to survive the relentless pace of public judgment that does not soften with age, but sharpens as people expect wisdom without weariness, grace without grief. For an audience in their 60s, Lindsay's story resonates deeply because it echoes a lifetime of learning when to be pleasant and when to be honest, when to laugh things off, and when to finally admit that laughter has limits. And Lindsay has felt those limits most acutely during moments when her humor was misunderstood, when a light-hearted comment lingered longer than intended, dissected and debated, reminding her that words once released cannot be retrieved, only endured. And that realization brings with it a quiet sorrow familiar to anyone who has lived long enough to regret not what they said, but how it was received. At home, away from the studio lights, Lindsay's humor softens into reflection, and Craig becomes her witness rather than her audience, offering not solutions but presence, a reminder that partnership later in life is less about rescue and more about recognition, about seeing the whole person behind the public role, including the fatigue that humor sometimes hides. And in these private hours, Lindsay confronts the paradox of her gift, that the same wit that opened doors also taught her to sidestep pain, to keep conversations moving so she wouldn't have to sit too long with discomfort. As the years pass, she begins to sense a subtle shift, a desire not to abandon humor but to deepen it, to let it coexist with truth rather than replace it. And this shift feels especially urgent now, when aging brings its own quiet reckonings, when you realize that time is no longer something you spend freely, but something you steward carefully, choosing conversations that matter over those that merely pass the time. Lindsay's emotional arc bends toward this integration, the blending of levity and honesty into a voice that feels truer, even if it risks misunderstanding. And for a generation that grew up valuing composure and resilience, her journey offers permission to reconsider those values without discarding them, to recognize that strength can include saying, gently and without spectacle, that something hurt, that a joke landed wrong, that laughter did not erase the sting. Public scrutiny remains a constant companion, but it no longer feels like the central antagonist because Lindsay's focus has shifted inward toward aligning her words with her lived experience. And Craig's steady support reinforces this alignment, reminding her that the most important conversations are not measured by ratings or reactions, but by their capacity to deepen connection. Together, they navigate a shared landscape where humor still has a place, but it is no longer the sole currency of acceptance. And this recalibration feels like a late-life gift, one earned through years of saying the right thing at the right time, only to realize that the truest words are often the quietest, spoken without an audience. The story closes with Lindsay standing comfortably inside this balance, still quick with a smile, but no longer dependent on it, aware that words carry weight precisely because they matter, and that using them with care is not a burden but a privilege, especially now when experience has taught her that laughter is richest when it makes room for truth, that love is strongest when it listens without fixing, and that aging with grace means allowing yourself to be seen not just as the person who lightens the room, but as the person who feels its shadows too.